Hello, I'm horror cartoonist Dennis St. John. I draw monsters and write twisted tales. As you can imagine, I was a little obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Lucky for me, so were most of my high school friends, all except one. One friend who stubbornly refused to join the Scoobies. So here we are, 20-some-odd years later. I'm teaming up with Doc Travis, John Teach Landis, and maybe a special guest or two. And we're going to make our friend, Michael Poley, watch one episode of Buffy a week until he's no longer the Buffy Virgin.
Okay, we're rolling.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Buffy Virgin, spoiler-free Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast. Friends, we're about to begin Season 5. We started this journey with Buffy as high school sophomores, and now here we are. Look at us. So I'm your host, certified monster expert Dennis St. John, and we have a special guest this week, Mikie VanHelder. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mikie VanHelder. Some people call me Mikey. I'm in Philadelphia, and I'm a friend of John Landis. He was on my podcast, so he invited me to be on this podcast.
And what is your podcast?
My podcast is called Movie versus Expert. It has yet to come out, but there is a preview available. And if you guys stick around till the end, I'll tell you how to access that preview. The premise of my podcast is that we talk, or we watch a movie, and then we talk to an expert in what the movie is ostensibly about. So, for example, John Landis is an early childhood educator, so we watched Kindergarten Cop and talked about how good of a kindergarten teacher Arnie is in that movie. Turns out, not so bad. We're doing A Few Good Men with a JAG lawyer. We're doing Trekkies with a fandom scholar. We did Sneakers with a computer scientist. So it's kind of comedic. We talk about, if the movie is bad, we talk about why the movie is bad, but really it's kind of an educational show. We use the movie as a springboard to talk about, relevant scientific or scholarly topics.
Awesome. Sounds great. And we're also joined by the regular gang. Why don't you guys introduce yourself in order from smallest to largest carbon footprint?
My name's John. I think I have the smallest carbon footprint. I take only public transportation, and I've never had a driver's license in my life.
You flew to England.
That's true. Jets are the worst thing you can do. I fly back and forth across the Atlantic multiple times a year, so maybe I should go last. But anyway, my name's John. I'm happy to be on this podcast, possibly polluting, possibly not.
Hi, my name's Travis. Guess I'm the next biggest polluter. Boy, this sounds real dicey way to introduce ourselves. But yeah, I've been on the podcast before.
My name is Michael. I'm the Virgin. I've only seen Buffy up to season 5, episode 1, and I'm probably the biggest polluter. Even though I try to recycle and sort through my recycling, I still have a car, and I don't take public transit as often as I should.
All right, awesome. I'm starting season 5 a little controversially. So why don't we jump into reactions?
Audience reactions.
So we've got some reactions across a few different episodes. So guest of the podcast, Maya, came on and commented that just listen to the Yoko Factor, fabulous recap song. Good job, Mike. And very good conversation. I often enjoy your episodes more than I enjoyed watching the original Buffy episodes they were based on here in season 4. Boom! Better than the show we're reviewing.
I agree. I prefer to listen to a podcast than to rewatch anything from season 4.
Ooh.
Anne Rink says, you're actually antagonizing 2 of your regular listeners every time you badmouth the Puppet Show. That was the episode that cemented the show as one of my favorites rather than just an okay show at the time it aired. Granted, the horny dummy routine doesn't exactly age well. A lot of fan love for Puppet Show.
Yeah.
I like that one more than I should have, I admit.
We need to stop using it as the example of the bad episode.
Yeah, there's worse ones really to pick on.
Praying Mantis lady.
Oh,
Teacher's
I love
Pet
that.
was so good.
Teacher's Pet is excellent. I love Teacher's Pet.
You're saying that just because you've never been a teacher's pet, John.
So Rich, and this is in reaction to the Primeval thing, he asks if the intro video was inspired by the Philadelphia action figures. And it's a link to, do you remember that Saturday Night Live parody?
Classic.
And also in reaction to that, Silver Spike says, they did actually sell a Primeval Buffy action figure and got as far as doing a prototype Adam, which was never released in the end. A little bit of trivia, James Marsters, ended up doing his own fight scenes in the end battle, as the stuntman they hired for this didn't cut it as far as Whedon was concerned. And he was a lot happier with what Marsters was doing. Giles and Spike, what are they still doing on the show? Entertaining us, in my opinion. Oh, and the writers fully admit they cocked up over the Spike/Adam plan, as it didn't make a lick of sense. So they ended up rewriting it so Spike's character took the blame. Lol. So now getting into Restless, Shane Stewart says, dream is a series of thoughts and images occurring while asleep, like a reflection. Interesting with this dream sequence is that it reflects the characters this season from the previous three. Willow reverting to her former high school days, Xander's insecurities, home life, and feeling he has no place in the gang. Xander's dreams also the longest. Giles' role as Buffy's watcher father figure while desiring a life of his own. Buffy as the Slayer, unaware of the origin. There are also some foreshadowing in her dream. I like the first Slayer's introduction. Saxman says, I just discovered your channel and I adore your approach / format. Looking forward to season 5. So thank you. Silver Spike, this is in reaction to Restless, says, would you believe you published this at the same time as Passion of the Nerds started their live stream of Restless 2? Lol. Interesting take on the episode. Very different from his. And Renee Pope Monroe says that Restless is my fave finale, and it's a gif of Rachel being excited. So we haven't seen Rachel, Renee's reaction to the our recording, but she was pumped for that episode. So sorry, that was a lot of reactions, but I just want to say thank you to everybody who does watch our podcast and interact with us. We really appreciate it. We'll always read your comments if you want us to, and if you don't, we will just really silently appreciate them. So thank you. Our fans, or not even, the people listening mean a lot to us. We really appreciate it. All right, let's do the summary.
The summary.
I'm the bee, I get it done. I don't go out at night to fucking have fun. I'm the only Buffy Summers bitch. I am the chosen one.
I'm the bee, I'm the Drac. My shadow gives you heart attack. Van Helsing couldn't take me out, so I'm back.
I feel sorry for you. I still have the edge of my seat. I'm mistaken for the Count from Sesame Street. Your cape looks like an old napkin. How does 19th century fashion still happen? You're a creep. I'm concerned you're asthmatic. Willow's worried you're hiding a semi-automatic. Even my ex-angel is more charismatic. I'm the bee, bitch. I never learned to behave. You brought your own dirt, now you'll dig your own grave. Bitch.
You call yourself Vampire Slayer. You're reminding me to play cosplayer. How Riley drinking the dating is a masterstroke. His initiative is a joke. His idea of fun is a playful pope. You seem like a kind of group like to be choked. Your romantic life is a house of cards. Your friends are as useful as a party full of bards. Willow is dumb as a muppet. Your pervert friend Xander I turn into my puppet. This is not X-Files. I've already destroyed your old man Giles.
Wow. Amazing. Dude, everyone is better than the last. All right, let's go on to Great Lines.
Great Lines.
All right, so in this episode, I really appreciated when Willow says, what about the rest of us? We need to be watched. Personally, I can't get through the day without a little hairy eyeball.
I really liked Willow and Xander talking. Mike Virgin, do you want to be Xander?
Sure.
Xand, what if somebody had a secret and that somebody promised somebody else they wouldn't tell anyone?
Newsflash, Willow. Everybody knows.
No, this isn't about me and Tara.
Not that I wouldn't be all ears if you wanted to tell me about a secret about you, even if it was very naughty.
I don't know. I just like she's trying to not tell the secret about Giles leaving, but Xander's just like, newsflash, Willow.
It's clearly a sex secret.
Yeah. That's all his mind thinks of. Oh, okay, some sex secret.
Horny Xander. Mikey, do you have any favorite lines?
So I do have a favorite line, two actually. But before that, I want to get back to the bit about Xander asking his best friend for sex stories. Does anybody here do that? Because I have female best friends, and I've never once asked, hey, tell me about the love you make.
No. This is another Xander ick moment.
Like super creepy, not just a little creepy. Like, ew.
Horn Dog Xander.
Horn Dog Xander.
I mean, the best part is like they're drinking like coffee from like they're drinking like frozen cappuccinos. So it's like this Willow can't get. There's no safe space when Xander's not creeping out. Like,
It's a fantasy friendship.
Yeah, I mean we've I think we've laid off of pointing out every horrible thing that Xander says by now, but we shouldn't. You're right, we shouldn't, because it's just that it's so constant.
Yeah, it's amazing it's still going on here in season 5.
Yeah.
Hey, how is he still horny for all his friends?
I mean, I'm horny for a lot of my friends, but you know what I don't do is tell them about it. I'm horny quietly to myself. But my favorite lines are actually Xander lines, though. It's the Bader joke, where Xander says, like, any of that's enough to fight the Dark Master. And then everybody looks at him, Bader. And then the follow-up, which is funnier, which I wouldn't jump to conclusions about the Unholy Prince, Bader. And I remember when I saw this show, I watched it when it first aired, and you know, however old I was in high school, and I broke down laughing. I thought that was the funniest thing in the world. And now, you know, 20 years later, maybe it's not quite as funny, but I still appreciate those lines. I thought that was good writing.
Agreed.
Nice, yeah. Michael, do you have any?
No, I think the hairy eyeball was great, and the Bader joke is so good. It totally landed for me.
Yeah. I also really like, it was just an off-screen line, but when they were talking about Dracula, and so it was like, I wonder if he knows Frankenstein.
I knew you were gonna like that. That's such a Dennis thing to say.
Any monster reference.
Ooh. All right, let's do the kill count.
The kill count.
I counted 2 humans, 2 vamps, and 1 KO that isn't Giles. So that's what I got this week. So let's start the meat of the podcast. Let's go into the weird noticings and trivia.
Weird noticings.
I love that opening beach scene. Sorry. The opening beach scene is a lot of fun. It feels ripped out of an Archie comic book. It's just so playful, and the stakes are super low. And then there's a cute inversion at the end. It's like whatever the Archie formula is, like just deconstruct that scene and do it on every page for 64 pages of a double digest. It was just so much fun.
Yeah, I love that scene also. You can notice Sarah Michelle Gellar's real life tattoo on her back when she's throwing the football. She's got like a heart tattoo or something.
Oh. Tattoo watch.
Speaking of detailed watching, Trav.
Oh yeah, so I'm such a nerd. So the Buffy DVDs are still like the old school TV format that is like a square, and then you watch on Hulu, it's all widescreen. I watched on Hulu first. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is when it went widescreen, and then I put the DVD in later. I'm like, oh nope, not yet.
No, I don't think Buffy ever goes widescreen.
I feel like season 7 does. I know Angel does.
Angel does, but I think other than
Buffy never
Once
does?
More with Feeling, I think it stays
Okay.
That's right.
in the TV frame.
So you're hardcore nerds out there. You can decide what you want to watch it in.
4-3. The answer is 4-3. You want to watch the originals, unless you're doing a lot of freeze and zoom in on details.
You can watch, you can zoom in on all the details that weren't meant to be there and are not like technically errors. They're just there. You got another noticing here, Trav.
Oh yeah, if you make a spell where you close a door, do you automatically open a window? I mean, it was just like her fire spell immediately, caused it to rain. It was just a fine joke.
Back when we were trying to keep track of when Willow mastered the 4 elements, because she mentions the 4 elements in this one, I was going to be like, this is it. This is the moment that proves she never masters the 4 elements. But we've already given that point to you.
Thank you.
So let's go on to the scene where Giles and Willow are scanning books and shit.
Yeah, one thing that Giles mentions is that he's labeling the amulets, and that is really something he needs to work on because the Word of Valios is a amulet that we learned by zooming in on the HD version actually is labeled on the back, but Giles still missed it. So he really needs to work on labeling those amulets. We know that actually has some fairly serious consequences.
For sure. Trev?
Oh yeah, they should not be scanning these books.
I know.
Can't scan musty old tomes. You think it's all just Watchers journals, but you're gonna scan some demon into the internet again. It's not gonna be good.
Yeah, they really did not learn their lesson from that one.
Although they did upgrade from a handheld scanner to a flatbed.
Yeah, at least it didn't drive me crazy of like, how does this work?
No, that's worse though, because a flatbed scanner, books that old, you have to put them down flat. You're going to break the spine.
True.
So it's much worse for the books, a flatbed scanner. You're not going to do like a high def photograph of it. Then a handheld is your better option.
Yeah, in archiving they use cradle scanners. Is that what they're called? Where it holds the book.
Yep. Yeah, just turning them upside down like that and slapping them down. I collect books, so I saw that. I'm like, oh god. Xander should know, or not Xander. Giles should know better.
It's his collection.
You think Giles is actually going to take those books to England?
I mean,
I think so.
Shipping books to England, I can tell you, is not cheap. They're heavy, and I mean, if they're valuable enough books, which I'm sure they are, it's worth it. But geez,
do you know you still can't ship horror comics to England? I've had to lie on forms when shipping comics to England.
I am slightly not surprised.
Let's say these are not horror comics.
Wow. Yeah.
What are they like? Is it educational material? I mean, like, what are you lying?
I just clicked the box that says they're not, even though they are, because like England had very strong reactions to the 50s horror comic craze, and without First Amendment to protect them, like horror comics are still technically illegal in Britain.
That is fascinating. Really?
Yeah. Even though they publish like horror comics, they just don't call them horror comics. They're just like zombie comics.
No wonder there's so many British fans of Buffy.
Yeah, they can't get it.
So like they're standing in a queue for like spooky stories. What's their? They just call them zombie comics and not horror.
Yeah,
comics?
I mean the British zombie anthology I was in didn't use the word horror. It just used the word zombie a lot.
So this actually brings up kind of a point that I thought we were talking about later, but might as well bring it up now if we're talking about British. A lot of this Dracula stuff was obviously supposed to be based at least partially on Hammer horror, the Hammer horror depictions of Dracula. Dracula always coming back. That's a big Hammer horror thing where he dies and he comes back, then he dies and he comes back. A lot of the visual language that they used was not the original Universal Studios Bela Lugosi Dracula. It was the Hammer horror Dracula was a lot of the visual stuff they used.
Other than the accent.
But they biffed completely like the Hammer horror atmosphere. Like Hammer horror had a very distinct, slightly campy, but not super campy atmosphere, distinct visual language. The Three Sisters were like supposed to be Hammer horror style Three Sisters, and they got it wrong. It kind of actually really bothered me because they were going for a specific Dracula, and I feel like they went way off the mark.
I mean, I think they were going the very specific thing of like you always come back is like very Christopher Lee Dracula, but I think they were going for more generic, like with combining it with the accent. And I was actually like, we'll get into this with recommendations, but I was thinking about the later Universal and the like John Carradine after Universal Draculas, where it becomes like where there's literally the titles are like Billy the Kid versus Dracula and Frankenstein versus Dracula. Like that's where the title comes from for this episode. So I think they are doing a more generic, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of Hammer in there.
Wow. Dracula nerds in the house.
Disappointed Dracula nerds.
I think a lot of them, well, we haven't gotten to disappointed yet. We're going to get there. Don't worry.
Trev.
What happens with Giles is largely, in my experience, what happens when you tell your friend that you're going to move to England is that they become very sweet and very kind, and they tell you that you know they're going to miss you and try subtle things to try to get you to change your mind. It's very, very endearing and very, very sweet.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this was interesting. Actually, this is the first time I've watched it since you've moved to England, and I thought about like you, and I was like, boy, I hope Buffy and the gang set up a different schedule for their podcasts. So
I love you all.
I was super excited because I saw that Buffy was wearing these red leather pants that I believe she's worn in other episodes, but they're her Faith pants, because it's like Faith loved to wear leather stuff and like be crazy and wild and hunt and kill. And I'm like, Buffy's a little unhinged now.
They're actually her Faith killing pants, which sets up when Buffy wears them to kill Faith, she has the line, all dressed up in Big Sister's clothes. What?
Whoa.
Bringing that back. So I kind of liked the Willow and Xander walking around the cemetery scene, despite horny Xander, just because it had a very like season 2 feel. The beginning of season 2, especially. But it just felt like there's they're still friends. They still do stuff that's not Slayer related. Like, it's nice to see them just hanging out in the cemetery, like, without being afraid of vampires.
Yeah, I feel like Xander in general is sort of made dumber than he even normally is in this episode, just for comic effect.
Yeah.
I like that your nostalgia for the show is like for just previous seasons of the show. Like, it's pretty crazy to have like mid-show nostalgia, but it is. But I totally get what you mean by the season 2 nostalgia now, because like season 2 is like really monster of the week, and then I mean this episode feels like a season 2 style episode.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's very monster of the week. And I like when we meet Dracula and Buffy says like, "Are you sure?" Because I've met a few pimply vampires that call themselves Lestat. I was like, I love the idea that there are vampire cosplayers out there. Buffy just murders them. Like.
I mean,
also, we know that Anne Rice exists.
Yeah, Anne Rice exists in this universe. Yeah.
In some other version of some other version of fiction, could you have a bunch of vampires who call themselves Angel?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, they totally use that line to get humans. Like, I've got a soul. Just like Lestat.
I couldn't believe that Buffy was hiding the bite. That made me super anxious. I didn't like that she was keeping it a secret. Of course, you kind of see that she's under a spell. It's not just a bite. Like, there's this magical transformation that's happened. But just like that reveal where Riley kind of like pulls the scarf and it's like, you've been bitten, come on. Like, I was so glad that happened, because I was like, please don't make the episode about her hiding this bite the whole time, because like this is dumb. This is like a school play. Come on.
Two things about that. One, the scarf she wears reminded me a lot of when Sarah Michelle Gellar dresses up like Daphne from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Around her neck, the neckerchief. I thought that was interesting. But the other thing is, do we see the angel bite scar on Buffy's neck in other episodes?
Yeah, like sometimes. I do one of the things I do sometimes is a Buffy scar watch, because it comes and goes. And if you're watching it on Hulu in better definition than the show was meant to be seen in, you can see it a lot.
Right. Okay.
But it's kind of randomly when it's applied or not. I do like Dracula bites in the exact same holes that Angel uses. I also was thinking about, this is a little weird, but like, there's like, you've been tasted before, and Buffy like apparently doesn't think being bit by the master counts. She doesn't like mention that one. She's like, she's not like twice before. You're number 3, buddy.
I mean, if she only has the one scar, and I'm just thinking about Jaws here, that means that all 3 vampires who have bitten her have the same bite radius.
Yeah. Weird.
Not a factor. That is strange that she's attracted. I mean, obviously vampires want to bite people, but that's an ongoing theme for this show now. Because like twice I was gonna, throw it out, but now like that's a thing. These vampires want to bite her, but also not kill her or turn her into a subordinate. Anyway, I'm sure I should have a prediction about that. So
I'm surprised it took all the way to season 5 before she tasted vampire blood. Like, I feel like that would be something that'd be explored like very quickly in like a modern day show, because it's just like upping the ante. But no, it took him like 4.5 years.
Yeah, it's true. I like that everybody's partners have like jealousy issues with Dracula. Like Tara's like, you found him sexy, huh? Xander's jealous that Anya knows him.
Willow is just like so guilty sounding. Oh, just like perfectly guilty.
Dracula really brings something out in people. Really tests relationships.
And it's such a banal Dracula.
They kept telling us that he's sexy, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't actually get any sexiness off of him, first of all. And there was no chemistry with any of the actors. Like, there's terrible chemistry between him and Buffy. And no chemistry at all. Maybe with Xander a little bit. But the rest, like, it was one of these things where, you know, not to harken back to my podcast, but John Landis and I were talking about how in every Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, there's an implied premise that women find Arnold Schwarzenegger attractive, even though he's a really weird-looking dude. And I felt like the same thing kind of happened here. We're like, oh, Dracula's so hot. Dracula's so hot. No. Right? Like, he wasn't particularly sexy or charismatic Dracula. And, you know, Sarah Michelle Gellar, she does the best she can, but you know, she has chemistry with David Boreanaz. She has chemistry, God help us, with the James Marsters. But she had about as much chemistry with Dracula as she does with Riley, which is to say none.
Yeah. Also, like, totally not her type. She's into the beefy boys, and this guy's lanky as hell.
She has a terrible taste in men, and so I could see how Dracula kind of fits in there. But
true. I liked his hair though. That like sharp widow's peak.
Why wasn't she wearing her cross at all this episode? Makes no sense. That silver cross that she used to own.
Yeah, where's that been?
Yeah, where's that at?
Listen, when you break up with somebody, you get rid of the stuff they gave you. That is a rule.
Important religious charms. Yeah, I guess we'll get rid of those.
You file that shit away.
Like how when a cop breaks up with their sergeant, they throw the gun away.
Like, or like, even if it's like life-saving, it's like, this fire extinguisher reminds me of my ex, so I'm not going to put it where I can. Like,
well, I love the initiative bickering. I like that Riley's like, well, the initiative, if they were around, they'd be able to find everything on this guy in a few hours. And like the initiative is like, we've just seen them as such like the, you know, well-funded, but totally misguided agency that like can barely figure out what's going on. And like, I just love that Riley's still holding the candle for the initiative as like the fucking high point, the apex of sleuthing. And like, it made me, anyway, that made me crack up.
Yeah. Well, it's so inaccurate. Like at this point in the episode, the initiative would still not be believing it's Dracula. Like they would be underestimating and like.
Oh, totally. They'd be like trying to go and tag him or whatever. And like 6 of them would be dead by now because they're a completely disposable organization. And then I just couldn't believe that Spike backed down to Riley in the Riley versus Spike in the tomb situation. Like you totally see Spike back down and like that made me angry because like I just didn't believe that. That felt too unreal. And I get that there's the chip. But Riley's not taking any of his special medication. There's like no reason for Riley to have power over Spike the way that he does, except that, you know, in the narrative story, it's that Riley doesn't care and would kill Spike, and he's okay to go through with it where other Scoobies wouldn't. But like, I don't know how you felt when you saw that, if that felt like off to you.
You know what felt off to me was James Marsters' accent in that scene. It was especially shaky in that scene. Because I rewatched that scene 3 times. Just so I was like, is it just me? But it wasn't. Like his accent was all over the place. I don't know if it was like just like a long break between seasons and he forgot how. It was like season 4, his accent was okay. And then here it's really rough. Also, I think that Giles would happily kill Spike. I don't see totally. Ripper not staking Spike if he felt that it would be to the advantage of Buffy.
Where was Riley going to get the money to pay Spike? Like he's talking about, I'm going to pay you for this information, which he never ends up paying him, of course. But it's not like Riley has a job. He's no longer being a teaching assistant because that was a poor ruse even when his teacher was like working for the government. I mean, like
those wealthy teaching assistants.
It's the initiative pension plan. I mean, he's going to get something from that. Like there's no way that agency can be folded and him not get paid for the rest of his life because they've got to keep that, I mean,
like a payout like the lottery.
no, I mean, military industrial complex, even if that organization folds, they got to keep spending that money. And
Pension.
so I feel like he's got to get wrapped up and taken care of, because I mean, I don't know how many people actually survived that incident even.
60% of the initiative survived.
60%. Ugh.
That's an insane casualty amount. I mean, that's just like unimaginable. Like that's such bad writing, because they might as well like put him on the moon. Be like, all right, Riley, time for a moon mission. I mean, it's like I miss his two-way hacked cell phone. Like I wish he had some of his like Anarchy Riley stuff still. That would have been great.
What is he even doing right now? I mean,
he lives somewhere.
He can buy donuts. I know that.
I was doing a little John peeping into the background of some of these shots. And in Buffy's room, in her like high school room, she has a album poster for John Prine's album, In Spite of Ourselves, which I started listening to and is really great.
It is a great album.
It is nothing that someone in high school would stumble onto.
No, it's not.
Without the internet, or even probably even if she went to the ultimate of all ultimate record shops, aka Empire Records, which is not canonical. Okay, it's on the other side of the country. Even if it wasn't the real, even if it exists in their universe, it's not something that you would just stumble upon. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, John Prine's great. I was really glad that you pointed this out, Travis, because that song, In Spite of Ourselves, is amazing. And it's way outside of Buffy's normal musical taste, which we know to be stoner rock, like 90s stoner rock. And, John Prine, people who don't know, is like a really excellent, like kind of country and Western songwriter. Really, really, really great stuff.
John Prine is probably a Riley influence anyway.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's in her high school bedroom. That's the home. I mean, it's like it's just.
But it's a new poster because it's a new album.
Well, hasn't she been staying there over the summer at her mom's place? That's kind of the way they imply it when she has, dinner with Joyce.
Yeah, and it's so weird that Dinner with Joyce did not have her sister there, but
she doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, she comes into existence. No, she doesn't. And I noticed this. This is a random noticing.
Podcast.
Sorry.
Be careful. Tread lightly here, folks.
But at the end of the episode, Dawn is there.
Yes.
Dawn is present at the end of the episode, so that's not a spoiler for future episodes.
Name's Dawn? Cool.
In the episode, Buffy and Joyce are having dinner, and there are only 2 place settings.
Very true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I saw that, and I was like, I'm trying to understand why that was. And just a mystery right now.
Yeah.
Also, there's no way that Riley is not like a John Cougar Mellencamp Billy Joel guy, right? Like generic beanbag, white boy, popular music guy. He doesn't listen to John Prine. Riley's the worst.
Yes.
No, it's perfectly believable, right? That like after Angel, Buffy goes for the soft landing. Totally get that, 100%. So it makes sense, but he is not in any way interesting or notable. He's just kind of like a beefy dude.
You sound jealous. You sound like you want to get with Buffy. So you're like, look, I don't get it. I feel like I feel like that way in high school when girls would get with guys. I'd be like, nothing going on there.
No, I thought she had great chemistry with Angel, right? If he didn't have his own show to do, she should have stuck with him.
Can you imagine a TV show called Riley?
Exclamation point. Riley exclamation point is how the show would be called.
Riley would be one of those shows that you'd be like embarrassed to watch, but it's also like somehow the most popular show and doesn't make sense. And it's like
it's on CBS.
It would be
right after NCIS,
but with vampires.
It's like Riley's like a 3-camera sitcom. I don't think it's a drama. But you know what you can say about Riley is that he's observant. Riley is the only character who seems to have noticed that Sunnydale is like Springfield. In that, like, how Springfield, whatever it needs, it has. It's got a gorge, it's got a forest, it's got, the Sunnydale Tower or whatever, and monorail, whatever they need for the episode. But Riley has noticed that Sunnydale works by the same rules because they're like, wait a second. He's like, wait a second. How come there was no castle before, but now there's a castle?
Yeah, it's especially heightened this episode with the castle and the beach being there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that it's not even like Angel's mansion. It's just a legit, like, European castle in California.
I was trying to figure out like what set on the Fox studio lot this castle was from, or the interiors are from, and I couldn't figure it out.
It would have been almost better if it was just like a matte painting, you know?
Yeah.
So Buffy and Xander, both under Dracula's thrall, are color coordinated. They're both wearing pink and black, which I thought was kind of interesting. Buffy's wearing like the pink pleather pants, which are like, it's like a mellower version of her faith killing pants, you know?
Mellow pants.
Yeah, I don't know what it all means, but it's interesting. And I like that in this, like, Dracula still plays by like his own set of like Dracula rules instead of the in-universe vampire rules. I just think that's funny.
I love how everyone calls him Drax or You know, like a lot of them don't call him the full Dracula. They say Drax. I don't know. I thought that was really endearing. And we had a really fun Anya story. Like Anya, just like your friend who you kind of like are really like kind of cringing when she starts telling stories. You know, you're kind of like, oh, how not PC is this story going to be? And then Anya's like, oh yeah, I'll hang out with Dracula.
Yeah, I like that. I still love that, like, Anya doesn't look back on her time as a demon with regrets or anything. She's not like, oh, I've got so much to atone for. She's just like, this is a funny story about a guy I killed by making super fat. Like,
oh, that's fun. It's like she's got the demon positive version of stories to tell. That's great.
Just proves how awesome Anya is.
So why did you like that Dracula plays by his own rules? Because that actually really, really bothered me when I first saw it, and it still bothers me today. Right? Dracula rules, Dracula vampires are essentially invincible. They have all these amazing superpowers. Why aren't all vampires like that? Like, where does he get his thing? And like Spike's like, oh, it's just, what is it called? Like carny magic?
Showy gypsy
stuff. Showy gypsy stuff.
Which we don't like the gypsy word around here.
Very complicated nowadays.
Yes.
But like, it's not just illusions, right? Like in the can I spoil things for the comic books?
No, because they are in canon.
They're in canon? Okay, well, whatever explanation Dracula may have later on in the series doesn't make any sense either. Like, they keep trying to justify Dracula at some point, and it just makes no sense. Dracula has like crazy superpowers. It's not just a trick. He gets staked and then comes back. He turns into a legit bat. Like, that's not a stupid trick. Can all vampires do that and they just choose not to?
No, he's playing by his own rules. I like it because I just think it's funny, and because it feels like such a one-off for this episode. This episode feels like it takes place in this like weird pocket universe that runs by like rules of humor instead of rules of like their own physics or whatever. Like,
I think that's right, and I think that makes sense. I mean, my in-universe explanation is just pretty simply that, like, if you can have a human sorcerer, you can have a vampire sorcerer, and that makes you a real badass if you're both.
And I like that they go all the way with it. Like, he's got like complete white pancake makeup all over him. Like, he doesn't go into the Fang mode. I mean, he doesn't get the bumpy forehead. Like, if they went halfway with it, it would bother me more. But like, it's just like full on like this is the time. Like, this episode is called Buffy versus Dracula. Like, this is the time Buffy fought a cartoon. Like.
Well, and the three sisters don't have vamp face either, right? They're sexy with fangs.
Yeah.
Which implies that when Dracula makes vampires, the vampires he makes have his abilities. Why doesn't the vampires rule the world?
I'm with you. I almost feel like this Dracula is like way more interesting and should not have been a one-off episode.
I think that would have been like too much to like.
How many lame vampires do we have in the show that like Buffy just stakes and kills? I mean, the last cool vampire was Trick. That guy just had personality.
Well, and that's part of the problem with Buffy as it progresses is that vampires just aren't a threat. And they haven't been a threat for like, I think 2 or 3 seasons at least, right? Because she kills so many vampires. They're just there. They're like putties in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, right? You're not ever afraid of a putty. Putty's never going to do anything bad to you because you just hit them in that thing in their chest and they explode. Same thing with vampires. You hit them in the thing in the chest and they explode. That was kind of.
But that's when you underestimate them, when they're most dangerous.
No.
I mean, I think Buffy's power is always like so related to like what's going on. Like she was weaker against Sunday because she was like in a confused Sunday the vampire because she was like in a weaker, like a more emotional place. Like anything can hurt you as long as like the story needs it.
Well, they kept having to raise the stakes in the show, right? And so Adam was a much tougher villain than, the villain in the first season, the Master, I think, personally. Tougher physically, anyway. Because, again, vampires aren't a threat, which is why Dracula would have been interesting as a longer-term villain, because he has this heightened power set. It's like, how do you kill a guy that can't be killed? That would have been cool. But I don't think he would have worked. Sorry, can I get into why I think Dracula doesn't work as a villain on Buffy? Or is that for later?
Yeah, do it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So this gets kind of complicated. So bear with me here, okay? Because this is a bit of a long ride. But, excuse me, Buffy as a show is about a fractured family. Buffy doesn't have a father. Buffy doesn't have siblings, maybe. And so it's about a found family. And so Giles becomes the father figure. Joyce is still the mother. And it's all about all these misfits coming together as part of a family. Dracula is basically like a bad dad figure. Dracula as a character has always been about Victorian sexuality. And the way that he's portrayed is as either a Victorian rake, aka a rapist, or like a dark patriarch. Right? In Buffy, he is neither of those things. In this episode, he is neither of those things. He is just kind of a roadblock and kind of a sexy guy. But the kind of appeal of Dracula is, originally anyway, why he was such a good romantic villain, was that he was terrifying to Victorians because he was overtly sexual. He was seducing their women. Buffy has already slept with a vampire, right? Like that horse has left the barn. And so the fact that she might become romantically involved with Dracula, that Dracula might seduce her, which is Victorian for rape, is not all that threatening. And she already has a substitute father figure, Giles. And she, and she had Angel before, right? Which kind of fulfilled the dark, brooding, sexy vampire stereotype. And so Dracula is kind of just a rehash of all of this. And so thematically, Dracula doesn't work. The classic Dracula doesn't work as a villain, because he has like kind of like minor mind control powers and he kind of sort of seduces her, but like he bites her where she's already been bitten. So why is he a threat? He doesn't escalate the threat at all, and he doesn't make sense in terms of either as a seducer or a bad father.
I mean, I think what's happened in Buffy is that she's matured so much as a character that they can drop in Dracula, who would be the biggest fucking deal, the most prime vampire character that she could fight. And that she's totally transitioned to the character point where this character is not even a threat. He's kind of a goofball. And like the in-universe stuff is kind of a weird twist because it has to be a little bit different than what we've seen in order to have any kind of weight, because otherwise it is just a stake, because she's hunting down a vampire at the first scene. So it's got to be something different than that. And so his gypsy magic, whatever that he has, like allows him to do all these strange things we've never seen before. And it's like, it's kind of fun. It feels like a play. It feels like a little Archie universe Dracula experience. But like she's so matured. And like by the end of this episode, it's like she's talking about, hey, Giles, I want to hunt them. She wants to totally shift the direction of the show. And like, I don't know what's going to happen in season 5, but it does feel like the fact that Dracula's kind of a pushover and whatever, he gets to escape and live on, and maybe he'll come back, but probably not. Maybe in the comics. That it's like kind of, for me, it's like a huge shift in the direction of the show and that character, that now instead of reacting, she's going to be antagonizing and being a little more aggressive. But I mean, I totally agree with it doesn't work. As we maybe want, this Dracula work, and the potential for Dracula is so awesome. So it feels a little bit like a waste, but it feels like just a neat moment in an inversion of the show for me. But I mean, I also agree with you.
He also doesn't use any of his special Dracula powers in any way that is interesting to the plot. They're just there. They're set dressing, right? But he doesn't ever turn into a bat and like spy on them, which might have been kind of cool. Yeah, he creeps into her window as Mist, but like he could have just climbed into her window. Like he didn't have to be Mist. He just did that for effect. So it just feels like Dracula was a lot of set dressing so they could use Dracula and it'd have oh cool, Dracula's here. But he didn't actually impact the story in any meaningful way. He could have just been another vampire. He could have been just like sex vampire. They could have just called him that and it would have been the same episode, which for me is a waste of Dracula, who is actually a very powerful trope. There's an essay online, and I didn't come up with this idea, but I think it's a good idea, that in modern fiction, vampires are kind of represented as a father figure you want to have sex with, and werewolves are like a brother figure you want to have sex with, right? And so Dracula was definitely sexy, but there was no real sense of oppression or danger. He was kind of comedic, but the only comedy that I felt worked was the Xander Renfield comedy, which I thought was actually pretty good, like him eating bugs and being the butt monkey. I thought that was pretty fun. But otherwise, it felt so generic to me, and it's a waste of a great character. That's my opinion.
I don't know. Yeah, good opinion. I think like this is Buffy season 5, and like you couldn't have done a Dracula in season 1 when they're introducing what this universe is. This is the kind of thing you can only do once things are like really established, and then they're like, now instead of like it being like our take on a kind of Dracula-like character, they're like, we are solidly using the name Dracula now, and we are getting over it in one episode because we're saying like the show is no longer we're no longer at the point where like a generic vampire means anything, I guess. And it's like
Dracula versus the Initiative would have been an interesting plot, I think. Like all the resources of Dracula versus all the resources of the Initiative, and then Buffy's in the middle. That would have been cool.
No, that would have been more interesting for the Initiative. For sure. I mean, as it is, they could barely handle a werewolf.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I feel like I wouldn't want Dracula. I wouldn't want to spend more time with Dracula than is necessary. Like, I'd rather see new monsters in a show like this. That I think that's always been their focus, is like their like modern at the time take on classics instead of like just the classic. So I think, I don't know, it's good to have, like, this episode works for me a lot because it's a fun one-off.
I also think there's a missed opportunity with Giles feeling like Giles is the father figure of the Scoobies, right? And Giles feeling kind of left out. If you had played Dracula as like a dark father figure versus Giles as the good father figure, that could have been really cool too. It's such a wasted opportunity. That's my whole feeling on this episode. Was like, after the bad taste that the Initiative season left in my mouth, when I saw this at the time, I was in high school. What year was this? Was this 98?
This is 2001.
But I remember being like, oh, the Initiative sucked. Adam sucked. Oh, Dracula, this is going to be so cool. And then I watched it, and even though I didn't have the vocabulary at the time to describe why I was disappointed, I was like, there's too much with this. It could have been so cool. You know, they could have done, like, if they wanted to, they could have done a whole bunch of like old movie references, Dracula references, Hammer horror references. That would have been kind of fun for like vampire fans. They didn't do that.
I mean, they could have opened it with them at a drive-in watching a classic film, and then like not know that it's really Dracula's there, you know, something that like truly homaged, like really dug into it. But
they didn't even do the most iconic Dracula line, which is, I do not drink wine, right? Like that is the Dracula line. They didn't even do that. There's nothing.
All right. Yeah, why don't we move on to questions for the group?
Questions for the group.
So my favorite one-off character in this episode is the guy that's hauling Dracula's dirt, and he like never really gets to finish his line. He's like, dirt, man, rich people are, and then he immediately gets like his throat ripped open. So what was that guy about to say?
Rich people are just making my life more difficult.
The rich people are crazy gardeners. The rich people are gardeners. I don't know.
Rich people are not interested in the shipping costs involved in dirt from here to there.
Maybe it was like, rich people are.
So next question here. So Dracula is clearly the Scooby Gang celebrity monster crush. Who's your monster crush?
I'm going to go with Ava Ernst, which is the Grand High Witch. That's Angelica Houston's character from The Witches.
Nice choice.
Deep cut.
That's my monster cut. That's my monster crush.
Yeah, I feel like there's too many for me to count. But I'll go with the Bride of Frankenstein. Also, just I don't know.
Every monster?
Every monster. There's other podcast I listen to that I'll promote a little for no reason, called the Monster Smash. That's like every episode they like talk about a monster and then whether or not the monster could get it. It's really good. I really enjoy it. Most of the time, the monster can get it.
I'm going to go with Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice. If you can call her a monster. I don't know if you can or not. There's also a character from Scooby-Doo Goes to Ghoul School, which when I was a kid, I had a huge crush on her. She was like Dracula's daughter from Scooby-Doo Goes to Ghoul School. Let me go with that one. I don't even remember her name. But like as a 10-year-old, I was like, yeah.
Trav, do you have one?
Oh, I'll go in canon. I'll go Darla.
Ooh, nice.
Darla, she's such a bad, dangerous person, but it's like Darla, yes.
You got to think for those blondes.
Yep.
Oh, Dark Willow, right? Obviously Dark Willow.
Well, yeah.
We're going to go in
That goes
canon.
without saying, yeah.
Right. As night follows day, so...
Okay, so April O'Neil in cat form. 7 of 9.
7 of 9.
And
Wait. Hold on. Michael, you've watched Star Trek Voyager?
yeah, but this is like kid stuff. I'm thinking of like kid stuff. I mean, high school watching
Star
it.
Trek Voyager, not kid stuff, my friend.
Well, I just remember watching it before I went to sleep. It would be like MASH and then Star Trek on Fox or whatever. And it would be a random episode, no idea what order, what season, any of that stuff. And then I'm going to, obviously, Elvira. And so there's my 3. It's probably too many monster crushes.
No, never too many.
Janeway was a real monster on Voyager.
True. She was the real monster. I
She should be like as soon as she got back to the Federation, as soon as she got back, she should have been thrown in jail for murder.
Yeah, these are extreme takes, guys.
Justice for Tuvix. Hashtag justice for Tuvix.
Amy was just doing her best in extreme circumstances.
She's a murderer.
Trav, you got a question?
Oh yeah, Xander was willing to serve Dracula for immortality. What special power would you want in exchange for serving Dracula? Assuming you could choose, because like that immortality is like the common like thing that Dracula trades on, right? Serve me, I'll make you immortal.
I mean, immortality sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to switch it up if you could, like, value meal. Like, instead of fries, you'll have chips or...
Like, could I get like laser beam eyes? What are the requirements?
Laser beam eyes, but you're going to die someday? I don't know. Like, once immortality's on the table, it's kind of hard to really beat that.
It's kind of the ultimate superpower.
I mean, just to become a Dracula-type vampire seems pretty good. I mean, he's got the whole power suite, right? Like, he wasn't offering Xander just immortality. It's like immortality, turn into a bat, turn into mist.
That's true.
Not have a weird monster face. Like, seems like a pretty solid suite of superpowers.
I mean, I think the reality is he wasn't prepared to offer Xander anything. It was all BS. Like, he might as well say, I'll give you the moon. Because Xander isn't getting shit.
I mean, yeah, immortality. Let's do it. Let's be but undead and with the suite of Dracula powers. That sounds pretty badass.
All right. Do you guys want to move on to recommendations?
Recommendations.
I only recommended one Hammer horror movie this time around because I think I've already recommended a few throughout, but I don't think I ever recommended the Dracula AD 1972. But I was thinking about the Dracula versus, like Billy the Kid versus Dracula and Dracula versus Frankenstein, and House of Frankenstein. So I was thinking more about the end era of like Universal Studios American Dracula movies as being like this kind of like peak bad Dracula. And John Carradine being, in my opinion, he's like the worst of the main Dracula actors. I think that's generally considered true, right? I don't see a lot of people doing praise for John Carradine. And I'm also going to recommend Psycho Beach Party, which is like a 50s beach party parody movie starring Nicholas Brendan, and it's really funny. It's a super enjoyable movie. It kind of mixes like the beach party movies with slasher movies, and I guess it's based on a stage play. I know we've enjoyed it many times. Mikey, do you have any recs?
Yeah, I sure do. Monster Squad if you want to go Dracula.
Nice.
I'd be surprised if that hadn't been recommended already on this podcast, but if not, it's a classic 80s monster mashup movie. And the Dracula in there is actually pretty strong. Like he's a very strong, I forget who plays him, but he's like actually a very scary, seductive Dracula. Also, I'm going to go Sundown, The Vampire in Retreat with David Carradine, not John Carradine, and Bruce Campbell. Yeah, Bruce Campbell plays a descendant of Van Helsing, and it is kind of a vampire Western. It's comedic because, Bruce Campbell plays like a funny Van Helsing, but it's also, in my memory, a fairly scary vampire movie.
Cool.
So there's the idea is that there's a vampire who wants peace between vampires and humans, and there's a vampire that wants vampires to be just predators. And Bruce Van Helsing, I think he's Bob Van Helsing or something, shows up to try to wipe all the vampires out, and ends up. Well, watch the movie.
Cool. Sounds good. Sounds like for fans of Briscoe County Jr. also.
For sure. And the vampire in that movie is named Mardulac, which is an acronym of Dracula. So they call him Dracula. They called him Mardulac.
Draculas are so obsessed with their naming. All right. Why don't we do predictions?
Virgin predictions.
Okay. So new for this season, we're going to make a couple adjustments to the ways that we do predictions. First new adjustment is that we're going to start tracking predictions by season. So I did some magic on the spreadsheet, and I can tell you, Michael, how well you've done at predicting what happens in each season. So I can tell you that in season 1, you had a 66.6%, right? So high D, not bad. Okay, not failing anyway.
Over 50 is good.
Season 2 was your best season. You pulled a C, 75%.
Wow.
Season 3 was your worst. You got a 54.32.
That's what's been dragging you down this whole time.
And so that I think we can say you flunked season 3. Season 4, you managed to get 60%, which is just barely a D- on a 10-point grading scale. So there's that. The other new tweak is that we're going to allow you each prediction, each episode that we do, we're going to allow you to make one super prediction, which is going to be worth 5 times the amount of a regular prediction.
By allow Mike to do this, do we mean force him to pick?
I think we should force him to do it. I think he gets to choose which prediction it is, but I think we should force him to do it. I think every episode he needs to make a super prediction that'll be worth more. And the reason we're doing this is because we realize that predictions, as we go forward, the way math works is that each prediction that he makes is worth sort of less in terms of percentage than all the ones before it, because, that makes everything sort of less dramatic. It's petering out. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to keep things dramatic. And then maybe by the time we get to season 7, we'll have to have super duper predictions or something. I don't know. But all that said, what we can say, Michael, is that your overall percentage is currently at a 61.9, and we have no stats for season 5. So let's see what happens.
Was anything confirmed or denied this episode?
Yeah, sorry. Yes. In season 3, episode 11, Michael, you predicted that Willow will master the 4 elements. And we went ahead and confirmed that in season 4, episode 9. But in this episode, it almost seems to directly contradict that. So I think we need to take a vote. We may need to reverse this, that she has what? Reverse?
I think Willow's...
Oh, no.
Terrible precedent.
I will defend Mike here that I think what happened is Willow's spell went correctly, but it happened to happen at the exact same time Spooky Dracula came into town.
Okay.
Spooky Dracula's reign.
So Dennis votes that this is going to stay confirmed. Travis, what's your vote?
Yeah, confirm.
And Mikey, what's your vote?
I think mastery implies that you're never going to make a stupid mistake. And she made a stupid mistake. So I think that she has effective control of the 4 elements, but I don't know if I'd call it mastery. She might be like a journeyman of the 4 elements, where every now and then she still kind of bubbles. I'm a Johnny come lately here, but I'm going to vote deny in this particular case, I think.
Okay.
Because obviously she can't be a master if she can't light a campfire without pulling up a storm. That seems to be a lack of mastery.
Strictly on the premise of stare decisis, I think my vote is going to also be confirm, making it 3-1 confirm vote. So we're going to leave that one confirmed for you, Michael.
Reconfirmed.
And then the other one we have to talk about here is in season 4, episode 18, Michael, you predicted, and I quote, "This show will have no monster bats." I think this is a monster bat.
Yeah, this is totally a monster bat.
Yep. So
I thought it had made a stronger opinion about Dracula's, but yes, of course, there were monster bats here. I thought they had completely banished this style of Dracula from the universe, but as a one-off.
okay. That having been denied, and those are the only stats that we have, your average overall is a 61.6. Your average for season 5 currently stands at a 0%, because all of the predictions that were addressed in season 5 have been denials.
Great. Well, let's get some more predictions on the table. So I have some easy predictions, and then I have the ones I want to go all in on for the multiple point, prediction. So first, Dracula isn't dead, but he's not coming back to the show. And I mean the Dracula that appeared in this episode. Second prediction, we're going to have an episode opening from the perspective of a Slayer of another era. Seems like we have to. Buffy wants to learn more about other Slayers. We're going to have a Slayer from another era as an opener, firmly embedding us in that Slayer universe. Third prediction, Giles is not moving to England. However, fourth prediction, Giles will visit England. England is on his mind. He's got some stuff to do there. I don't know what it is. We're going to find out. Now, this is a tough one because I kind of want to go all in on this, but I have a couple predictions. One, Buffy doesn't have a sister. And I think Dawn, as I learned her name is not her sister. So I think this might be what I want to go all in on, but I got another one I'm thinking about. This is a kind of far out there theory. I think Buffy's sister, Dawn, is a demon that is hiding out. That's just what I want to say as a theory, as a prediction. And then I think Buffy is going into the Hellmouth to fight vampires and demons. Now, I think that because I think that this is a reversal that happened in the opening here, where she's going to be aggressively pursuing demons and vampires, as she stated to Giles. And what's the source? The Hellmouth. And we've gone in there once before. I guess they'll have to get in there through some kind of carabiner or some kind of thing where they lower themselves into it. But she's going into that Hellmouth to shut it down and kill the things that come out of it. That's what feels like has to happen for this show. I don't know if it's happened this season, but it seems like it will be this season based on what happened in this first episode. But I'm not sure whether to go all in on the sister or the Hellmouth thing. I think the sister's a more sure thing. So all in on Buffy doesn't have a sister.
Okay. Excellent predictions and one super prediction. Well done.
Super prediction. Awesome. All right, that was predictions. Now let's go into themes and deep stuff.
Deep stuff.
To paraphrase Arthur C. Clarke, I feel like any sufficiently advanced rhetoric is indistinguishable from magic, and I think that this is kind of what this episode to me is about. The idea being that persuasion, or looked at another way, seduction or rhetoric, is using words and then making somebody do what you want, not necessarily what they would do independently, which is basically what magic is, right? It's like using words as an action to make people to make somebody change their will. I think that is, and for that reason, when people are good at persuasion or good at seduction, that makes them terrifying. And I feel like a lot of what's going on in this is just that. That's all. That's as far as my thoughts go on that. But when I thought of any sufficiently advanced rhetoric is indistinguishable from magic, when I thought of that phrase, I felt very proud of myself.
Very smart, very cultured.
Yeah, that's a nice word spell you just cast.
For me, I think that one of the big themes that struck me was about growing up and maturity. So Buffy's, dinner plans with Joyce when she's talking about, maybe they'll have dinner together in the future. And then Giles moving on to England. Buffy doesn't need that father figure or that adult watcher parent in her life anymore. So she's sufficiently, maturing. And I think this episode about maturation, and that also her goals have changed. So at the end of the episode, when she's talking to Giles about how she wants to pursue vampires, or she wants to, learn more about about slayers, it's like she's reached a level of maturity now where she's achieved some level of mastery of her power. And then she now wants to change the goal of the story, which is not about preparation, but is probably about preparation, but it's not about the maturation. She's there. Now it's like some other plan needs to be made. Some other story gets to be told. I thought that was very cool and very, very explicit.
Cool. Yeah. Good read. I was just thinking about the theme of blood in this episode. I mean, because this is the first episode, Buffy drinks vampire blood, and Dracula gives, there's the whole, Dracula's always all about blood, but there's the whole blood is life thing. Blood is life, blood is power in the Buffy universe. And I don't know what else blood is. But I don't know. It feels like it's just worth noting, this theme being set up now. And I also wanted to reflect on these themes as they relate to Restless, and how we saw it's kind of like checking in on everybody's dream worries from Restless and where they are from there. So Giles was very concerned. It was concerned with his role of being a parent with Buffy still, and you see him wanting to sever those ties now. He's ready. He thinks Buffy's ready to be on her own, and he's ready to leave. And we see Xander making this Xander very much making this declaration of I'm gonna move on this season. I'm done being the butt monkey. The only person we don't, and we see, you've already brought up all the stuff with Buffy. So the only person we don't really see kind of having that assessment moment is Willow. But, you only got so many minutes in a show. All right. Well, I've been your host, Dennis St. John. I'm at DENISCOMIX. You can buy my books, Land of Many Monsters, Any More Monster Tales, and Amelia, a Monsters and Girls book, wherever the internet is found. And you can follow me for more of my work. Mikey, why don't you promote your podcast, and where can people get a sample?
Love to. So we have a sneak preview of the podcast that probably won't actually be out until April or so, but you can listen to rough cuts of the first 3 episodes at movievsexpert.com or movievsexpert if you prefer. I don't. .com. It is password protected, but for listeners of this podcast, if you put in the password Sasquatch with a capital S, that's capital SASQUATCH, it'll bring you through to the site, and you can listen to John Landis' episode, which is Kindergarten Cop, and then there's a robotics episode and a computer scientist episode as well. I would love it if listeners of this podcast would mosey on over there and leave us some feedback, with the understanding that the episodes are still in very rough cut form and they're super long. They're going to be cut down significantly before we actually go live.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we'll post a link to that on the Twitter at least, and tell people to watch the episode to find out how to get to them.
Rock on. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you one and all for listening and talking to us at Buffy Virgin. As we begin our 5th season, you can visit our website, buffyvirgin.com, for links to our blog, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, maybe. Reach out. We love to hear from you. And don't forget to rate and review us on the podcast listener of your choice. And we'll see you in hell.